We're going to go live right now to Prime Minister Trudeau, and his top ministers are providing an update on the wildfire situation across the country. Let's listen in.
Well-being at risk, racing into a burning community to evacuate an elderly man who was unaware of the threats they were facing. As always, speaking with firefighters, they tried to shrug it off a little bit as it's just our job. We're just there to help people with that extraordinary modesty of heroes. But I pushed on them a little bit. I said, you guys do these things day in and day out. Firefighters are stepping up, first responders are stepping up in harrowing situations to save their fellow citizens. And when we get an opportunity to see the direct impact, and it gets a little bit of coverage and the stories get out, it is all the more important that we be there to say thank you. I actually had a nice moment with Connor where he admitted that when he'd gotten home at the end of the day, he hadn't quite explained in detail the incident and the challenges they were facing. And his partner, who's pregnant with their child, just reading the news was a little bit worried for him. And I think a lot about partners and families of first responders. When I spoke with Kevin, I also spoke with his wife Amanda and Liam, and I want to thank right now all the families of firefighters, of first responders, of CAF members who put themselves in harm's way to protect, serve, and save Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Liam's in grade 4, and I actually asked him if he had any advice for my son, who's going into grade 4 next year, and he said it gets better. It's a little challenging, but not too bad. But having those moments to thank families and engage with the people in the front lines who are showing the very best of Canadians in stepping up is something I think we all need to be taking time to do, to recognize the first responders in our communities, those who are there to keep us all safe, even through the most difficult and devastating of times. In a moment, Minister Anand will speak to the current status of Canadian Armed Forces deployment in Alberta, Nova Scotia, and Quebec. There are hundreds of Armed Forces members now deployed. Additionally, the CAF is helping with everything from delivering food and supplies to people in Mingani, Quebec, to providing logistics support for water bombers at CFB Greenwood. Hundreds
of Canadian Forces members are currently deployed. This is added to the support provided to firefighters and equipment and support to Indigenous communities.
Matching funds are also live for Alberta, the Northwest Territories, and Nova Scotia, so if you can, please consider making a donation. Before I pass it over to Minister Blair, I want to recognize the air quality statements that have been issued by Environment Canada because of wildfire smoke. People across the country are being affected. We're seeing vulnerable people at risk, outdoor events canceled, kids having to be kept inside at recess. I can't help but think, my conversation with Liam yesterday to conversations with my own kids, the past few years have been challenging for kids. Whether it was through the pandemic, whether it was readjusting to school, whether it's now dealing with wildfires that have everyone really worried and smoke that's preventing them from going to play outside. I want to thank kids for continuing to play safe, to be safe, and to help around the house and to help their families get through these scary times, including all the kids who can't return to their homes all the way across the country. Please listen to your local health agencies about how to stay safe. We're
going through difficult times, but together, as always, we will get through it. I'm now pleased to pass the floor to Minister Blair.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Good afternoon, everyone. Bon après-midi tout le monde. As of today, there are 2,293 wildfires that have occurred in Canada. Approximately 3.8 million hectares have been burned. And across the country, as of today, there are 414 wildfires burning, 239 of which are determined to be out of control. Also, as of today, an estimated 20,183 people remain evacuated from their homes and communities. And while this is an overall reduction in parts of Alberta, Nova Scotia, and Quebec, where people have been able to return home, many are still displaced. And as fires continue to threaten their communities, we're working very closely with our provincial, territorial, and municipal partners and First Nations partners to ensure that we provide support to those who have been evacuated. We have also seen continued impacts to critical infrastructure in Quebec, such as roads and rural closures, telecommunication interruptions, and high-voltage power lines being threatened by the growing fires. I want to assure Canadians that all orders of government are working closely together, including with our Indigenous partners, to ensure a coordinated and effective response. It's all hands on deck, and it's around the clock. I also want to assure the Canadians that despite the challenging start to the wildfire season, there are strong plans in place. We work very closely with our provincial, territorial, and First Nation partners, and we have the capacity to respond. And just yesterday, I think all Canadians saw a heartwarming video of firefighters arriving from South Africa at the Edmonton International Airport. They've come to this country to assist as coordinated by the Canadian Interagency Firefighter Centre, just as our Canadian firefighters have supported other countries with their response to their wildfires. And this is in addition to the firefighting support and resources that we've already received from the United States, Australia, and New Zealand, and which we also anticipate will be coming to Canada in the coming days. We understand 109 firefighters, for example, will be arriving from France tomorrow to assist in Quebec. To all the firefighters currently deployed across Canada, we say thank you for answering the call. In addition, NGOs, including the Canadian Red Cross and the United Way, have also stepped up across the country to provide support to evacuees and to those who have been impacted by the wildfires. I want to take the opportunity to sincerely thank all who have generously donated to our matching campaigns. And with federal and provincial contributions, these appeals have already raised over $26 million in Alberta, $6 million in Nova Scotia, and in the Northwest Territories, they are close to reaching their $300,000 goal. To the firefighters, first responders, search and rescue teams, and members of the Canadian Armed Forces who continue to move to danger to keep our communities safe, I want to say thank you for your incredible work. I also want to thank all the public servants, Indigenous leaders, emergency management personnel, community organization, and everyone who is working collaboratively together around the clock to coordinate resources and to keep Canadians safe. Thank you very much, and I will now turn the mic over to Minister Anand.
Good afternoon, bonjour. I want to extend, first and foremost, my deepest sympathies to everyone affected by the devastating wildfires across the country. Nous faisons tout en notre pouvoir.
We are doing everything in our power to provide support and assistance to your communities.
Today, I'm going to provide an update on the support that the Canadian Armed Forces members are providing in 3 provinces, and I am thanking them for answering the call each and every time. I'll begin in Alberta, where approximately 130 Canadian Armed Forces members are currently deployed in Fox Creek and Fort Chipewyan. They're providing firefighting support, engineering support, and airlift capacity. On May 30th, they helped to evacuate more than 100 residents from Fort Chipewyan, which is only accessible by plane or boat during the summer. And on June 1st, 5 civilian fire trucks were transported to Fort Chipewyan by CC-130J Hercules aircraft to assist with wildfire response efforts. Now, in Nova Scotia, Canadian Armed Forces members are providing support in 3 areas: planning and coordination, that's logistics type work, ignition specialist personnel and equipment, and personnel and tools to assist with firefighting. Ignition specialist personnel from CFB Gagetown are now on the ground, tasked with helping to prevent fires from spreading. An immediate response unit of approximately 100 soldiers from 2nd Battalion, the Royal Canadian Regiment, has completed firefighting training and is ready to deploy as soon as tasks have been identified for them. 14-wing CFB Greenwood also provided a civilian company with accommodations, ramp space, fuel stock, and other logistics for their CL-415 water bombers and PC-12 observation aircraft. Au Québec, les membres des forces armées canadiennes.
We've been listening to live updates from the federal government. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, alongside his top ministers, providing an update on the wildfire situation affecting parts of the country.